The Grind is sponsored by the 74million.org. The 74 is an award-winning nonprofit education news website which believes that education should be front-page news every day. I'm actually here with editorial director Steve Snyder. Hi, Steve.
Hey, Mark.
So, Steve, why don't you tell our audience about a few topics you're covering at the 74 right now?
Well, one thing we're starting to look at more closely is that there's actually a declining college attendance rate across the country.
Whoa, why?
Well, we think there's a few reasons. One is there's a declining birth rate, so it's just a demographic challenge. Another issue, though, is a crackdown on for-profit colleges, which means there's actually fewer schools for people to attend. But then there's also this third issue of there being an increase in remedial education, where fewer and fewer high school seniors are graduating and finding themselves prepared for college-level courses.
So is it a problem that college attendance is going down?
Well, definitely when it comes to that third part, we think it is a problem. You know, we think every high school grad should be prepared, you know, if they want to pursue a higher degree.
So where can our audience learn more?
Well, we're going to be covering it every day, the 74million.org.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks.
Amina is a planner.
I'm a Capricorn. I don't know if that helps, but planning is like in my nature. Like I cannot be content and happy, like mentally stable if I don't know what I'm going to do for the rest of the day.
And she has a system.
I have a calendar in my room, on my laptop, and on my phone. Every single meeting that I have, event that I have is put into that calendar. Every quarter I have like a priority list that's hanging on my bed that lists what my priorities are for the quarter. If something comes up where I'm torn between doing two different things, I look at the list and I'm like, okay, there's a reason why I put classes before being a co-chair. So for example, this quarter, my priority was, it's always classes. Like courses are number one, research, and then MCAT studying.
What's like eighth on the list?
Let's see. I have to say grandma. Sorry, grandma. She doesn't say anything.
Are you visualizing it? Can you actually see the list in your head?
Yeah, I can see the list in my head. So there are 20 items.
There are 20 items.
There are 20 items.
That's pretty good that grandma's 8 out of 20.
Yeah, right? Like, I love her to death. Yeah.
Hey there, everybody. This is Marc Casali. I'm a consultant and an educator, and you're listening to The Grind. Real talk about the modern working world. So in this episode, we're going to try to answer a few common questions about life plans.
Yeah, like, is it good to make a life plan? How far out should I be planning? What happens if stuff gets in your way?
Whoa there, whoa there. This is my producer, Warren Langford. He'll be joining us on most of these episodes. Warren, what's up? How are you?
I'm good, Mark. So, obviously, I have a million questions, but I want to know more about Amina first. Like, how on earth did she become such a forward-thinking person?
I know, right? You know, it's interesting. She wasn't always that way. Growing up, she lived in Dubai, and her father was actually in charge of the planning.
My dad was a businessman, and he saw business opportunities in Dubai early 90s, so he decided to move his family there, and then that thing comes to me. And so,
did you ever feel like you sort of fit in Dubai?
Never. Because my dad was financially stable, he had the opportunity to put us into really good schools.
Her dad also had a plan for Amina's education and her career.
There are different curriculums in Dubai, but my dad chose the British curriculum because it was the most intense. And so
That sounds like a good father.
Yeah, not really. So the system was in 9th grade, you would have to choose between business and science. You were enrolled in high school. They ask you, what do you want to do with your life? Do you want to go to the business route or science route? After talking to my dad, we had previous discussions. It was basically all his kids are going to work for him. And so what did I want to do? And so I was like, all right, I'll just be the accountant for your company.
So you had that conversation when you were in 9th grade?
Before that. So it would be like dinner table conversations. He would talk about his business, and then he would kind of let us know that this is what we're going to do with our lives. Like it wasn't a direct conversation where, hey, Amina, you're going to be an accountant. It was just like all four of you, 3 other siblings, all 4 of you will be contributing to my business once you guys finish high school or college.
Which wasn't ideal because, as it turns out, Amina really likes science.
I liked biology. I think it's because I wasn't going to pursue it. It wasn't something that's going to be my end goal. And I think that was like my peak into the science world. And I liked it much more than the accounting class or business class.
But all of this didn't seem that strange to Amina at the time.
I'm Somali and grew up in a Muslim Somali household. So everything that we followed was Islamic. And so even though my parents were both like, they prioritized educations in our lives, at the end, as a woman in the Somali community, marriage is you finish your education, you get your degree, but then you still have to prioritize having a husband, a household, a family, raising kids. And so that's what my mom has done. So she stopped her career to raise us. My brother has a different story than mine because his responsibility was to find a bigger like career, to think about his adult life. Whereas me, as a woman, I had to think about who I'm going to marry next and how to basically market myself.
But then her father's plans began to unravel during the 2008 global financial crisis.
So I was in 11th grade when the principal came in and talked to my mom, and that's like when my dad's business was falling apart and he couldn't make the payments for our tuition, and we weren't aware of that until the principal came in and talked to my mom and pulled me out of class, pulled me out of school in general, because my two other siblings were attending that same high school, but then they had to make the decision to pull me out because my tuition was the most expensive one. So my two other siblings continued to go, whereas I sat home for the next 2 years.
What was it like to not go to school for 2 years?
It was sad. Mostly it was sad, right? I would wake up in the morning, watch TV, a lot of TV, caught up on a lot of TV shows, and then wait until 2 or 3 o'clock for my siblings to come back from school, watch them get excited about, not really get excited, but complain about their homework, or they had something going on in their lives where I just sat there literally all day.
Were you envious of them?
Oh yeah, 100%. And then there were some thoughts in my crept in my mind about, why did my parents decide to pull me out of school versus them? And I understood the whole tuition thing. I understood the whole economy thing. I was older, so but it was hard. It was tough as a 15, 16-year-old. It was, and that's when I learned the importance of education, right? Yeah. My parents stressed that all our whole lives on, you got to get your degree, you got to get your education. But that was one ear out the other. But then once I sat there for 2 years, day after day, not knowing what to do with my life, not having a job, it was harsh. Yeah. That's what I did until my uncle came and visited us. And once he found out that I was out of school, he pushed my mom for us to move to Seattle.
Whoa. So the culture shock of growing up in Dubai and then suddenly being thrust into the Seattle public school system, that must have been really jarring.
Definitely. That first day of school was really tough for her.
Oh my gosh. I could not sleep the night before because all I've known and watched from high school was through TV shows and movies. The first day of school, it was an English class that all seniors had to take. I came in 45 minutes early. I sat down, I was the only kid in class. Then students kept coming in, and then it was then Nick came in and sat right next to me, and I didn't know what to do. I just didn't know what to do with my hands, and I didn't want him to get an impression that I don't know. Then I started freaking out, and I couldn't pay attention because Nick was just sitting right next to me, and then all these other boys were in the classroom, and all these white people. I've minimum interactions with white people. I went to school with majority of just immigrants, Indians, Pakistanis in high school, Somalis. So white people were rare. Then after that classroom, I was I can't do this. I legitimately cannot do this. So I just went into the nearest bathroom and just sat there until it was 2:10. And
so for 5 hours.
Yeah, straight. It was scary. It was traumatizing. Again, grew up in a Muslim country, right? 0 interactions. You're not allowed to touch boys or, and any interactions. I think it was so extreme. if you made a move that the other person felt like you were hitting on them, or it's like a sexual act, that could put you in a lot of trouble. So I didn't want Nick to, like, if I did something, I don't even know, like, it sounds ridiculous, but I didn't want him to think that I was trying anything funny.
But she went to school the next day, and the day after that, and eventually, Seattle started to grow on her.
And then slowly but surely, I just realized like no one really cared. And I kind of finished through that year and made some friends and did the whole prom thing.
Did the whole prom thing?
With girlfriends. No one asked me out.
And all of this led her to applying for college in America. And it turns out it wasn't that easy. After failing to get into the University of Washington because of a transcript mix-up, she ended up attending community college. But that actually might have been for the better, because she finally got to dive into science.
And I took a chemistry class, and that's when I was like, this is it. What can I do with a chemistry degree right now, Mr. Counselor?
All right, how cool is that? So clearly the wheels are turning for her here, and the plan is starting to come together.
Because my thing was, my mom's here. She hasn't been a nurse for like almost 2 decades. My older sister was still finishing up her journalism degree, and my 2 other younger siblings are here. I have to be the provider. I need a job after college ASAP so that we can build a life here in Seattle, because my dad's situation didn't look like it was improving. So my thing was like, how can I get a job ASAP with just a bachelor's degree? So he's like, okay, you could do chemical engineering, or you can go to med school. And I was like, what's that?
Ultimately, Amina transferred to the UW and decided to apply to medical schools. It was a big change. Fast. That's a big difference, right?
Yeah, that is a big difference. That's huge. So I went from being a follower to a leader within like less than a year, because I had to. Like, it was just a lot of pressure to do that.
Which one of those feels more natural to you?
I think the most recent one. Like, I just feel like I like it. I liked it a lot, to just go into meetings, talk to a counselor, ask them questions, figure out what I wanted to do. Like, it made me very excited about like my life, and I felt like I could breathe. Like, I think that's when I started realizing that what life was about.
Yeah, and do you think part of the reason you felt that way and were excited was because you kind of knew what it felt like to be 2 years out of school, sitting by yourself in that apartment?
Yeah, I think that was the determining factor. If it weren't for those 2 years, I would still be the average shy Amina that you probably have not. Probably this would not have happened with
you
the
wouldn't
older.
be doing an interview on
definitely
a
podcast.
Not.
Okay, so this is pretty epic.
Pretty epic.
Everything is planned out for her in the beginning.
Yeah, but it's her dad's plan.
Right. And then it unravels. She moves to Seattle and starts putting it all back together, creating her own plan.
Totally. It's her plan now. And as you'll hear, it's pretty set in stone.
What's the percentage chance that you decide you don't want to go to medical school?
Oh, that's 0. I'm going to be a doctor.
Well, she's not leaving a lot of room for the unexpected. You know, life happens and ambitions can change.
Yeah. I don't blame her for trying to impose some kind of structure and plan in her life, because she's had 5 years of chaos, and she's just putting it together, and now she's got this clear plan. You know, for her, a plan is a welcome thing. Mm-hmm. Look, she explains it better than me. She has an answer set up for this.
Spontaneous people might disagree with like how I roll, because it feels like I might be missing out on so many different things. But like, how else am I supposed to find happiness if it's not structured? You know, like, if you don't have a goal, okay, this is what makes me happy. How do I get there? And like, having that discipline to follow through each step in order to achieve that happiness is like it's not like a boring goal that like, okay, I want a 9 to 5 job.
No,
and
yours is going to be 5 to 9. That's what you're going to have.
That's
Get
true,
ready
actually.
for being a doctor.
But she sort of has a point, doesn't she? I mean, it's actually pretty solid advice, it seems to me, to set a goal and then to make a plan to achieve it. And that's kind of how jobs are set up. Like, think about consulting. It's like you're an associate, then you're a consultant, then you're a project leader, and then you're a principal, and then you're a junior partner, and then you're a senior partner.
Okay, we get it, Mark.
Got it.
You know all the steps to consulting. But what about everything we're told about being present and appreciating the here and now?
I feel you. It's kind of conflicting advice, right? Have a life plan, live in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Well, should we make that our question for today?
I think so.
Okay, the question is, should you live in the present or should you have a life plan?
Yeah.
All right, so I have a confession to make. I sort of knew we were going to do an episode about this, and I have the perfect person in mind for us to talk to.
Who is that, Mark?
It's my friend Naz, and she has actually, literally, I kid you not, a 30-year plan written down. I feel like podcasts are like the most like type A way to catch up with your friends. You're like, we should talk. So I'm just going to like record it and make sure that it has another use besides just us catching up.
Kind of genius. I've always known that about you.
Naz has a company called Eu'Genia Shea. And even though it wasn't strictly necessary for the podcast, I made her pitch it to me.
This was not part of the question line. But,
Just want to put you on the spot.
Okay, so, hey, so, no, okay. Okay, so it depends on what type of retailer I'm talking to. Either it's natural goods or it's like social goods. So if it's a natural products person, then I'm like, hey, my name is Naa-Sakle Akuete. I have a skincare line called Eu'Genia Shea. No. Oh my gosh, Mark, you're the worst.
All right, sorry about that, Naz. But I'll brag about you now. Pitch aside, Naz is actually off to a fantastic start. She's making money. She's been featured in a ton of publications like Marie Claire, a national Amex ad, and even the failing New York Times.
Oof.
So there was like a weirdly rapid succession of awesome things happening. And then we launched an anthropology.
Okay, this is all great, but this is not why we called Naz to talk. So anyways, did I remember it correctly, Naz? So are you and your family planners?
Yes, we are weirdly intense family planners. And that was my Christmas present to my dad a few years ago, was giving him like a life plan. And then I made my husband do it. So we both have life plans.
So like, is it written down? Is it a physical thing?
Yes, it's integral to be written down because he wants to be able to refer back to it.
Is it a document that you guys have? Is it like a shared document?
It was just a Word doc. So right now, I think the last one that I did was in business school. So it looks something like, I'm going to graduate from HBS. I'm going to get married to Kyle like in June. I'm going to start working at X organization that summer. I'm going to work there for maybe 5 years and then reassess. A couple years after that, I'm going to think about having kids. And they're like actual years on it. Like, 2020, this is it. 2022, this is it.
Do you remember how far out you went?
So I went out, we jumped from when we stopped having kids. So it was essentially like, okay, kid 1 in this year, kid 2 in this year, kid 3 in this year. And then so we jumped from that last kid to them being in college so that we could figure out how to pay for stuff. And then after retirement, it was, again, just like live my life.
Okay, so that was pretty far. I mean, retirement is... So we're probably are we talking like 2050? Did you like go that far out? Or are you planning to retire like next year?
I mean, ideally I could retire next year. But yeah, it was 30 years out because I had bought the house relatively recently and the mortgage on it was a 30-year mortgage.
Okay, so why do you think your dad was so, fixated on you having one of these plans?
Because if you don't have a plan for what you want to do, then life's just happening to you instead of you living your life. I guess I know that it's weird based on like living, like getting other people's feedback, but it's not actually weird to me. So I think that it's important to kind of write out what you want and how you're going to get there. Otherwise, everything's just happenstance.
Oh, that sounds familiar. Didn't Amina say something just like that?
Yeah, she's definitely in the Amina camp, which says to be happy, you need a plan. But it's interesting, as we talk more, she told me this story about her brother.
So for example, like my brother, when he was growing up, was super, super artistic and absolutely loved cars. Like he would draw on, do you remember like Microsoft Paint? He would draw cars like pixel by pixel on Microsoft Paint, like Ferraris and Porsches and whatever. And they were actually really good. When he was in high school, he still was into art. Like he got offered a job out of college that was like to paint pieces for boutique hotels, essentially. And then also in his later years, kind of thought about like, what if I had been a car designer? You know, like that's essentially what I was doing throughout my childhood. I just didn't realize that was a job. And it's a job he would have loved and been really good at, but he didn't know that that's something he could be looking for. And so now he does generic finance and he likes it just fine.
So it's like her family was building these life plans based on what they expected to make them happy in the future, but not what they were doing in the present.
Right.
Well, you kind of got at it, but I was going to ask, like, what do you think are the trade-offs of having a life plan?
I think that the biggest trade-off, and this is completely anecdotal, is trying to figure out the gap between like what makes you happy now and figuring out if you can make a job out of that versus like, it's like a little bit material. So when I think about the way my life plan was, it was like kids and a husband, and what do I have to do for a job to be able to support both? And so it was like, you know, in 20 years, I want to be married with kids, and that's what's going to make me happy. And so these are the things that I need to get there, as opposed to like, this is what makes me happy now. And so why don't I think of ways to keep doing it? And like that other stuff will probably come.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that it's not so much that it's bad to have a life plan, but you have to be really smart about your end goal.
Yeah, no, I think that's right.
But I don't know, Mark. I come from the whole, like, let's play things by ear and see how the cards land where they may.
Mixing metaphors, I like it.
And as a 30-some-year-old, I'm happy now, and I think I've been really lucky, but I don't think I would change anything if I had a time machine.
Well, do you think that's just kind of hindsight? I mean, did you not have a plan at any point in your 30-something years?
I had a plan as a child to be a paleontologist. And slowly that shifted into rock star. Mm-hmm. But no, I never had a plan for how I was going to get to any of these places.
So you just like stumbled into the podcasting studio today and here you are with your chops.
Well, I stumbled into podcasting as a passion a few years ago, and yeah, that was just a few years ago, and that's literally the only goal I set was so I want to be a podcaster.
Okay, so you wouldn't have been able to when you were in your paleontology years.
No, not as an 8-year-old.
That you wanted to be a podcaster.
Nope.
So there's something about being like flexible here, but I don't think we should just dismiss being purposeful. We shouldn't just let life happen to us, right?
Yeah. Well, I guess I could start a paleontology podcast.
It's all coming together, Warren.
Yeah. But one thing I know is that this is way above my pay grade.
Yeah. I guess like we just didn't really figure it out this time.
Something tells me you have something up your sleeve.
Oh, wait. Yes, I did talk to one more person, but I think we should wait to hear from her.
Oh, is this a two-parter?
I think it is, Warren.
Ooh, a cliffhanger.
Yeah, next time on The Grind, we'll talk to somebody who has thought about this stuff way more than both of us and all of our other guests combined, and we'll drop some serious wisdom for our listeners here. Okay, but before we sign off, there is one last really, really funny clip from Amina that I wanted to play before we say goodbye to her for this episode. I asked her where boys were on her priority list, and here's what she said.
It's not easy to date me, because I'm a planner, right? And I don't prioritize the people that I date. It's difficult for me to do that.
Are they like 17 on your list?
It's literally, they're not even on the list, Mark. They're not on the list, Mark. I'm sorry, guys. It's just, I it's not. First of all, like my the list is in my room. Like I don't want my mom to see the list. That's like one point.
All right, thanks, Amina. All right,
Thanks, Amina.
This has been another episode of The Grind. Who should we say thank you to here? Again, the Washington State Opportunity Scholarship. Thank you. Thank you to Amina. Thank you to my friend Nas. Sorry I made you look bad, but I think I made you look good again at the end, so it's all good.
I'm impressed.
Yeah. All right, so for our music, we want to thank PG Boo. You can find PG Boo on Instagram at pgboomusic.com. That is the letter PGBOOMUSIC.
And we also want to thank Trackman Productions.
Yeah, he was great. I think we're going to use one of his tracks for our theme song. It's that good. All right, well, we're signing off then. So what do we say, Warren? We say...
Grind on.
I like that. Grind on, everybody. All right, see you next time.
Bye.